Hi, my name is Josh Rabinowitz, co-founder and CEO of Articulate Labs. Our company develops wearable devices that help greatly accelerate muscle strengthening and retraining. This takes a proven technology out of physical therapy and sports medicine realm called neuromuscular electrical stimulation and improves upon it with the integration of motion tracking hardware. And the same motion tracking hardware that we're used to provide therapy can also be used to help remotely collect kinematic data. Metrics such as knee range of motion can be reported back to patients and providers.
Hi everyone, my name is Chagai Levy. I'm the founder and CEO of Illuria. Illuria is a digital health company focusing on remote patient monitoring for mental and behavioral health disorders. And the basic idea is to mathematically analyze changes in physiological markers. We can deliver continuous and objective monitoring in various layers: proxy pharmacokinetic patterns, more aggregated data, mean-going patterns to avoid false positive alerts, and completely illuminating the entire ecosystem.
My name is Anil Shapakra, and I'm the founder and CEO of ICMed. We have an engagement platform that was designed for patients, family members, and providers to all communicate. As you'll notice, you have a dashboard here, and this dashboard has a wide range of capabilities which can all be customized for the purposes of the individual practice. One of the key features of our platform is the file cabinet. So this is a digital file cabinet where documents and data can be shared directly back to the patient and their family members that they're connected to.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're very pleased to have you join us for our first pitch club of 2022. Crazy, it's already 2022. We're pleased to have three really amazing companies presenting tonight about their remote care solutions. And so it'll be a fast-paced but informative and interesting night on medical innovation. With that, I would like to turn this over to Dr. Katie Richardson. She's our VP of Clinical Relations, who will MC the event.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. Welcome, everyone. We're happy to have you here for our first pitch club of 2022. Again, we're going to talk about innovations in virtual care and remote patient monitoring. And I think we have three amazing companies tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Our first presenter is Wendy Warrington, and she is the Chief Operating Officer for a company called SoberGrid.
Hi there, I'm Wendy Warrington, and I'm delighted to be here this evening. Thank you, AngelMD, for this opportunity. So SoberGrid was founded to better address the gaps in the continuum of care for millions of adults with substance use disorder. There is a marked discrepancy between the number of people who need addiction treatment in the United States and those who actually receive it. Stigma, cost, and accessibility contribute to these barriers. We address these barriers by creating an affordable solution with built-in anonymity, supporting all pathways to recovery and providing 24/7 access to support and resources. And for those who do seek treatment, many will relapse. And we created a solution that helps mitigate relapse by allowing an individual to connect to a sober network, get support when they need it, track mood, monitor progress. And this helps with accountability and resilience. So as I mentioned, about not only few receive treatment, but also few treatment programs integrate peer coaching and peer support. And so in peer support and peer coaching does not replace the need for formal treatment, but it does provide a unique and different perspective because they have lived experience. And so our peer coaching solutions provides that 24/7 access with these increased resources and support for individuals, and that many other solutions just aren't able to offer. And so our solution actually has two components. The app itself, which is available in the Google Play and the Apple Store, is free. And it gives individuals access to a large recovery community of over 300,000 members. And they can get support from that community, practice daily sobriety habits, and as well as monitor their progress. But not only can people get support, but they can give support, which is an important aspect of someone's recovery journey. And the app and the recovery community concept benefits everyone, regardless of what stage they are in their recovery. But for clients who need maybe additional levels of service, we offer a premium model. And this includes cognitive behavioral therapy, a resource library, our coaching, as well as crisis support. And if you think in terms of our premium model, our programs really serves as an adjunct to treatment, and we can support different phases of treatment. And really where we fit in is that we can provide support for every aspect of the recovery journey. We're also able to provide adjunct social work services to areas where there's less support, such as aftercare and long-term follow-up services. Individuals can access our premium services through our contracts with state agencies, treatment centers, employers, or through our monthly consumer subscription model. Works is we address these gaps really through the coach and accessing an individual. We assess the individual's risk and need for support. Our coaches are state certified and trained, and they work with individuals in supporting progress toward their custom recovery plan by providing accountability and resources. We've someone maybe who would be considered on maybe low level of support may just need the community and maybe the digital resource library. For the next level, it could be a CBT, structured or more frequent peer coaching. And then at a very high level support, this is where we offer the crisis support, and our coaches are trained to be able to hand that over to a healthcare professional if necessary. And the road to recovery just is not linear. And so individuals can easily dial up or dial down in the support that they need. And we collaborate with our premium clients really to identify goals, address the needs, fill in the gaps around engagement, as well as provide custom reporting. This is an example of our coaching program and its effectiveness. There was a study by Wright State University for the state of Ohio, and 470 of our patients participated. The bars in black was an intake, and the bars that are in red were at 6 months. The graph on the left shows that patients reported a reduction of substance use by 60%, and the graph on the right shows that patients reported improvements in mental health by 30%. At the top of this slide, I've included some notable awards, state agencies, collaborators, and strategic partners. Sections are color-coded under each of our time period. In blue, we have our company, products, and IP. Red is our strategy, and green is our revenue and funding sources. We launched our free social media app in 2015 and saw good growth. But our founders also recognized that there was need for additional specialized support. So in 2018, we acquired a peer coaching company called Ascent and put that on the platform. And what may surprise you is even in the early stages of our company, we've been focused on research and development. We've received federal grant funding primarily from the NIH and the NSF, with the opportunity to collaborate with researchers from UPenn and Virginia Tech. We've completed several phase 2 clinical trials, and we have a robust pipeline for future projects that include things like predictive analytics, virtual reality, a researcher portal. And this is all going to allow us to move into other disease states, such as pain management and PTSD. This has been a great source of non-diluted funding, while at the same time allowing us to develop technology and gain critical insights from leading addiction experts. We're really excited about our partnership with Orexo, a pharmaceutical company based in Sweden. We're a distributor of their digital therapeutic line with programs for opioid, alcohol mitigation, and depression. And this year we have a new opportunity with Walgreens launching next month. We've been approved to be their sole vendor for drug and alcohol addiction support on their Find Care website nationally. As mentioned, we have a strong B2B model for our premium services, and this opportunity with Walgreens is going to help us really expand our model. We're committed to gaining insights from our large recovery community, listening to our customer needs, and then leveraging technology and our platform in order to continue our mission to better address gaps in the continuum of care. We have a strong internal team of a talented team and an external group of advisors to help us monitor our mission and help us make advances in addiction science. And that concludes my overview of SoberGrid, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you so much, Wendy. I think everyone on this call understands what a big issue addiction is. And I think also the fact that this problem has only grown tremendously during the pandemic. So this is really exciting to see that there are solutions out there, not only the community aspect that is free, but then your premium services. Again, I want you to talk a little bit more about not only, I know you mentioned the services are affordable, so talk a little bit more about the cost of your services and who pays for those premium services. How do folks get into that pathway?
Sure, absolutely. So we have several options. One is working with employers, and we have a per member per month subscription model, as well as a model where state agencies can also purchase bundles to receive the services. And our services range between, depending on the level of services that they want, because everything is a bit of a menu item. So it ranges in price between $1,800 to about $4,000 per individual if you look at at the licensing bundling component of it. So it is very affordable. If you look at, it's about $6,000 to $36,000 for a 30-day treatment program. So when you look at this from an annual standpoint, it is a really good investment. State agencies, they have gotten a lot of their funding through the state opioid programming, the opioid funds, and then we anticipate additional funds coming through the American Rescue Plan Act. Individuals can also purchase our services through our consumer subscription model, and it's $99 a month.
And we do have a question from the audience, a couple related to some of the things that you just answered. What percentage of users opt for the premium services, the free aspect, and then opt for those higher level services on the subscription model? Can you talk about
what absolutely. Percentage? Actually, that is a bit lower in terms of a percentage. Our main business model has been business to business, and so that is where the majority, I would say, probably 75% of the people who engage in our services are coming through state agencies, employers, treatment providers. And then the other 25% is really coming from people who are on the app and then recognizing that they could benefit from our services.
Great. And another question related to your partnerships with state agencies. Dr. Freundsen, who's our Chief Medical Officer, said you mentioned that you're state certified. Is this regulated at the state level? And if so, how do you manage that across state lines?
Right. So actually, when we talk about state agencies, we're talking about a lot of various agencies, everything from drug courts to prison reentry, to participating with local county governments with their opioid programming. These are just examples. Our coaches are state certified. And what that means is that they have to have lived experience, and then they have to go through a certification process in the state in which they live. In order to be able to meet the criteria to be a peer coach, a peer recovery support coach. And so we certainly have our standards, which we have raised the bar in terms of expectation, but those are minimal, and most of them do require to maintain their certification every 2 years.
Great. And another question from a physician in our audience. And I really like this. It seems like right now you're focused really on drug and alcohol addiction. But there, as Dr. Zilberman says, there are all kinds of addiction, even to the internet. I mean, we could
gaming,
right? Gambling, all that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. How do you address these issues, or do you address? How do you address them if you do? And if not right now, are you planning to in the future?
It's a great question. What we have found is that has not been our focus, and that will probably necessarily not be our focus. We have found partners when we identify those opportunities where we're able to handle and hand over to them through healthcare professionals. So one example is a company called KindBridge, and they offer and they specialize in addictions, in gambling, gaming, you name it, and they provide that level of service.
Great. I know you guys have a lot of partnerships out there, and have the ability, or your peer coaches have the ability to make some of those referrals and recommendations, because those resources are already kind of built into your program, which is fantastic. One additional question from our audience: privacy would seem to be a big challenge, especially because you have this free sober community. Is it an issue, and how are you addressing it?
Well, I would say that part of the challenges with someone, especially, is around the stigma. And so when I talked about the built-in anonymity, someone can enter the platform and, they can disclose as little or as much as they want. They can show their picture. They can create a username. When we're talking about some of the other services that we utilize, we typically use non-identifier information on our reporting. So that way we're able to give our clients the information that they need, but as well as then being able to make sure that that person does have the anonymity. And there are times, though, where we do require a release of information, especially on our higher risk clients, where we do need to be able to make those connections and make those have those conversations with their healthcare providers. So as much as we try to protect their anonymity and what they need, we also recognize that we need them to be a partner with us as we help them in their journey.
Great. Well, Wendy, thank you so much. I know we have a few questions, one maybe in the chat and another one in our Q&A that did not get answered, but I want to encourage everyone who's with us tonight to come talk to Wendy after the event and get those questions answered, because again, we're not going to have time for all of them, but we appreciate you being here. Thank you for telling us all about SoberGrid, and it's exciting to see, again, a company, I think, really doing a great job attacking this very important issue. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. So next up, I have Dr. Brent Nowak with us, and he is the founder and chief technology officer for a company called Orthoforge. Oh, there you go. We are seeing them now. Thanks so much.
Fantastic.
Go right ahead.
Well, thank you for the introduction. Again, I'm Brent Nowak. I'm the co-founder and Chief Technology Officer for Orthoforge. And what I'm going to present tonight is a unique technology on our ability to remotely and continuously monitor bone healing as they fracture. The problem is that since the 19th century, the standard of care significantly hasn't changed. I mean, we see a very sophisticated x-ray machine on the left there, but as from the patient's experience, they still get exposed multiple times to harmful radiation. As a clinician, you have to schedule them to come in, and then you go conduct the physical exam and listen and understand their subjective reporting on pain and other kind of conditions. Now, if it's a child or there's an elderly patient, then you have the caregiver that also reports. In addition, what hasn't really changed is the clinician's experience. Now, you're not using films anymore, but the goal is to get the best outcomes possible. So you, the clinicians, the radiologists are interpreting x-rays across all these different multiple visits. Again, you listen to the patients and their caregivers, but ultimately the problem we're trying to solve is there's no quantitative assessment of how well the bone is healing, either absolutely or relatively within that patient. But what Orthoforge is proposing is an intelligent wearable that will provide the patient with remote monitoring. It reduces X-ray exposure, and you're going to get objective data in 4D. In other words, this can monitor nearly continuously in near real time, so you can get those trends. And based on our analysis and technologies, we're able to provide you a clear picture of how it is healing asymmetrically, which is typically hidden in some X-rays. So we've engaged industrial design firms and have shown how this, in this futuristic cast, the sensors are over the forearm, and we can use 1, 2, or multiple sensors as needed. These are very low-cost devices that can be miniaturized. What happens is we're using ultrasound energy, and I want to emphasize that. It's not ultrasound imaging, but ultrasound energy. And that complex waveform you see there, it changes over time based on the patient. It changes depending on where the fracture is and in what bone, whether it's a distal fracture or a proximal fracture. So you end up getting very patient-specific information. We take that information in our patented proprietary algorithms, and we do some traditional signal processing and comparisons, but we have been spending the last 8 years in developing some deep learning algorithms that you see in that scatter plot there. Don't worry, you're not going to have to manage that kind of information. Rather, what we've done is we've created and prototyped some software that will provide you a display that could be on a smartphone, it could be on a tablet or your office computer, or you could have other office staff look at this data daily. Let me spend a quick minute here on the top. You see this white area up here where you could have everything from the patient's name, their gender, when the fracture occurred, what type of fracture, etc. What we've proposed, and down here in the black background, first is a growth chart. This is similar to a growth chart that you might have for your children, where you look at the height and the weight. In this case, this chart would represent the healing progress across the 4 stages, the initial hematoma all the way through bone consolidation. This chart also, while it represents percentiles, it would change depending on whether you're looking at a young adolescent or an octogenarian. In the lower right-hand corner is a cross-section, which is very unique to our technology, where we're looking, you've got your intramedullary canal here. We've quadrant off the cross-section from the anterior, posterior to medial lateral. And on the left are the 4 quadrants where we're showing healing across those 4 stages. So if this were animated, which we can do and show you, but this coloration would change depending on how well you're healing over time, and would identify where you're getting some asymmetric healing. So we've demonstrated this technology, and we bucketed them in 3 different preclinical trials. It's either benchtop bone simulations, or we've done in vitro and in vivo studies. One of the most recent studies was with 2 sheep out of the Surgical and Orthopedic Research Lab out of New South Wales, out of Sydney, Australia. What they did there, we did a bicortical surgical isotomy in the right rear femur, and we stabilize it with an intramedullary nail. Now, all of our data is baselined against X-rays and CT scans. And the reason I highlighted the intramedullary nail is it doesn't matter how you fixate the bone. It could be plates and screws, it could be an external halo, or it could be, like we show there, an intramedullary nail. Now, this sensor sits on the skin, which again is very unique to our patent. Other technologies today are looking to do implantables, but we're doing it quite differently. Now, everyone wants to understand really how well we're doing. And when you start talking about machine learning, the summary score is called the F1 score, which ranges from 0 to 1, and it has to deal with precision and recall. And what that looks at is how many true positives, true negatives, false positives, and false negatives. And what you can see here, what I want to demonstrate is some of our most recent research and demonstration is showing that as we driven it over time, our F1 score is now settling about 0.98, but our error bars are getting very, very small. And when we're using convolutional neural networks and convolutional neural networks, we're very excited by that. So where are we in our technology development? Well, the blue boxes you see here in our timeline are the technology, which could be hardware or software. These are the yellow boxes are the clinical trials that we've been pursuing, preclinical trials we've been conducting, and then the funding along the bottom. Early on, we raised $350,000, which we're very proud of. We've been very capital efficient with that funding, and we've been able to do a fracture gap analysis that was requested by Johnson & Johnson Trauma, where we're able to identify fractures less than a millimeter gap and identify the location, the geometry with those same kind of F1 scores. We've leveraged economic development funds from the state of Michigan, which are non-dilutive funds, to continue automating some of the assessment systems and doing additional bone composite healing. We raised another $300,000 to continue to develop the software and where we've engaged also our industrial design firm called KCAD. Now, significantly last year, I'm going to spend a quick 30 seconds on this. We submitted a proposal through MTech, which is a Medical Technology Enterprise Consortium, which is a different contract vehicle with the DoD, multi-million-dollar proposal. This problem we're having in quantifying bone healing is one the military is dealing with readiness and availability of their soldiers. So we have been bucketed in the highest DoD rating. So we're hopefully going to receive that funding in 2022. We're already in conversations with Henry Ford Health System to conduct a pilot human study at a Trauma One orthopedic trauma center. And then with that, we're going to do additional raise to pursue our FDA work, and we're in conversations today with organizations like you see on the right, DePuy Synthes, NuVasive, and Bioventus. Now, just as good as the technology is and what we're providing is really the team we have. We have everybody here on the left. The board of directors have all been part of medical device companies, had successful exits. Our science advisory board is filled with giants from Cleveland Clinic, University of Penn, as well as MIT, where we've got world-class ultrasound technology experts. I want to thank you for the time and take a few moments to answer your questions now.
Brent, thank you so much. This is, again, really exciting technology. I mean, I think about my pediatric patients and the number of times that they have to go back in for a repeat x-ray and an exam. And I could see, well, for young and old alike, how this could be very beneficial. So one question I have, like, do you think this technology is eventually going to replace the use of x-rays and radiologists, et cetera, in the evaluation of bone healing?
Oh, absolutely not. This is an adjunct technology to give you more information so that you can do the diagnosis and determine if you need to change the standard of care. And one good point you raised when you mentioned the pediatrics, Katie, is that this is a passive technology with respect to the patients. So you're going to get 100% patient compliance because it automatically takes those readings daily and multiple ones so that the patient doesn't even know what's going on.
That's incredible. Another question I have, because you mentioned briefly that this technology will likely be able to use to monitor and evaluate soft tissue injuries. I'm guessing there are other potential indications as well. Can you talk a little bit more about those?
Yeah, sure. In fact, let me see if I can advance the slide here. I think I might have one that can show you. So what's unique about our technology, again, it sits on the skin. And what a lot of researchers and technology developers in the past have struggled with is how do you deal with the different body types, the body mass index, how much muscle, how much tissue.
Sure.
In our technology, we've been able to solve that problem. And that's actually in our pad, which we're the only ones that are able to do that today. So yes, we can observe soft tissues and the changes today. Now, we haven't focused our development in that area. Our target is the long bone healing initially, but we've already got very good indications that we're going to be able to look at other soft tissues that are in the body and monitor their healing and injury as well.
So one of the questions that's in the Q&A is this idea, they talked about the clavicle and or something, in the shoulder. You think about, okay, so the forearm with that circumferential technology seems to make a lot of sense. How would you do it in an area like that?
That's a great idea. So we're actually looking at another technology with our some of our science advisory board members. Mark Schaefer, he's got over 25 years in ultrasound technologies, PhD from MIT, 25 patents, et cetera. We're looking at flexible sensing technologies now, where there'll be multiple sensors in each one of those. So this patch then can be put over the complex geometry of different joints in the bone, in the body.
Very cool. Oh my gosh, lots and lots of questions in Q&A. So quickly, I'm going to go over a few more. Okay.
Okay.
Any crossover with therapeutic ultrasound for bone fracture healing of non-unions like exogen?
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. So actually early on, we considered that and looking as teaming up with some of these companies. And that's why you'll see that I think the exogen technology is owned by NuVasive. I'm not sure, but we're actually having conversations along that line. That is a great strategic partnership we're considering.
Fantastic. And another question around, will this monitor a spinal fusion as well? With, again, the way that you discussed, maybe future iterations of the technology.
Mm-hmm. We actually had conversations with a couple of spinal companies that do implants for that kind of thing. And while we haven't done a study yet, and because right now we used initially off-the-shelf industrial ultrasound sensors, we don't see any reason why we couldn't, but that would have to be a separate targeted development for our technology.
And there was one question on here, again, and I think it's hard to tell from your prototype to, again, kind of the second generation. They're asking about, okay, so casted fractures, where does this go, and how does it work?
Oh, okay. So the fundamentally, it doesn't change how it works at all. I mean, the idea that in a casted fracture, you would put it as underneath a wearable. Let me see if I can go back to that slide real quick and make this a quick answer. Isn't that great? All this automation. Okay, so this is showing that this is sitting on the skin. These our engineering studies have shown that these batteries can last up to 3 months. So these would be single-use disposables. So if it's a cast in the cast, as you know, ultrasound needs a coupling agent, and we've already investigated it and have identified materials that will provide that skin interface that's necessary for the ultrasound to transmit on there. So if it was in a cast, it would just be cast under there. And in our earlier sketch, we had a sort of a wristband idea. So this is where some of that funding will come in our multi-million-dollar funding to do our pilot study. And then when we hire the engineering firms to do the castable ones, we'll include that in the development as well.
Fantastic. Well, Brent, I know there's a couple more questions out there, and I'm hoping that our audience will stay to come ask those questions in the networking. But this is very exciting. We're excited that you were here today to tell us all about it, and I can't wait to hear about your future in human studies and more of the data. So very cool.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I want to thank all of those. I see there's several people from overseas for staying up late and joining us today. It's great to see you here.
And this is Mehmet Kazgian. He is the founder and CEO of a company called CLIEXA. So Mehmet, go ahead and pull up your slides. We're excited to have you here. And again, another great company that is working on remote patient monitoring. I think it'll be really excited. I think our audience will be very excited to hear all about it.
Great. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thank you. Well, thanks for giving me the chance, everybody. This is Mehmet Kazgan. I am the founder and CEO of CLIEXA. I started my journey in 2016 with CLIEXA, leaving Aetna as an executive on technology. I did software development for 26 years. As this year, I worked in hands-on software development, and I did actually my first AI development back in the days in 21 years. I think it has started the first data. And after leaving Aetna, I said I want to put a dent in digital healthcare realm and started CLIEXA. So I want to talk to you about like the remote patient monitoring solutions in specifically multiple chronic conditions today. Obviously, patients today have multiple conditions, but solutions today are around thousands of them, as you can hear, in multiple chronic condition monitoring, offering solutions in single conditions in single device. Another problem is they're not based on any clinical guidelines. If they are, they don't combine this with policies that are driven with risk models in the clinic with their practices as well. I'm specifically talking about conditions like diabetes, cardiovascular, specifically, which are highly correlated. There's also a lot of information noise with the data that are not unstructured. When I say unstructured, there's data from devices, data from automated information coming from referral databases or the electronic medical records itself. Unfortunately, out of this three, the fourth one is they don't really track billing and compliance support. Yeah, it creates some of the codes and requirements, but when it comes to the kind of like claims justification, they are limited at the same time. With that said, we partnered with American College of Cardiology in 2018. About a year and a half after I launched the company, I said, we want to build a solution that is EMR and device agnostic, that is based on clinical guidelines for 4 or 5 different conditions that derives multiple conditions outputs along with the multiple devices. So CLIEXA Pulse, which I'm going to demo in a minute here, can actually monitor multiple conditions, multiple devices on a front-end mobile applications, the native Xemer and hybrid mobile app that connects with the EMR real time. And also we built with American College of Cardiology the clinical guidelines, asking for a risk that also requires like some of the follow-up questions with the patients can be done also online. That's based on clinical guidelines, but also not limited with that can be also added by the clinic's policies along with the treatments. We also aggregate data. As we collect the information from different data points, we synthesize that with a patented data indexing model from multiple resources, which I'm going to give you a snapshot of, and then present it in an actionable way. And we also automate the eligibility for ancillary services along with it, act like a commoditized revenue cycle management platform. And we also support with billing and reimbursements as we generate documentation necessary for that claim. Okay, so all these cool things, how does it work? So the solution that I'm going to present here is a live CLIEXA Pulse application. Again, we announced it last year in June, and we are deploying it into our clients already. The patient here can basically, you can see here, it can add multiple devices, and it's really taking about 30 seconds to a minute to add multiple devices. Once it's added, it will start communicating necessary information from multiple devices here. And once this is done, the system will push out like any tags that are related to that basically high blood pressure and the date along with it. And you can see the patient is actually now triggered to a certain specific questions that is coming along with their condition. You're seeing hypertension here, and they need to answer certain questions why your blood pressure is high. Again, these guidelines are built with American College of Cardiology for following questions. Here's a type 1 diabetes patients. They can also track their CGM device, glucose monitoring, and the system will provide feedback, not only the patient, but also it will push it into the EMR directly. So the whole idea is really creating advanced interoperability. We have 8 EMR integrations already in place, 3 of them marketplace, all homegrown systems that really connects these 3 data buckets. One is patient-reported outcomes, clinical assessments, medication adherence, complications, automated APIs we built in that really gets device data, 300 plus devices that we can integrate with, prescription monitoring information, and patient history data with APIs, marry that data with EMR, apply the clinical algorithm, synthesize it, risk stratification model, and push it over into the EMR directly, discretely in a report. On here, you can see on the left, not only we're triggering the eligible ancillary services with the codes, we're giving a snapshot for the patients with cardiovascular risk, glucose risk, medication adherence in one screen, and we can design the screen for any conditions. We have 8 subspecialty platforms we built along with cardiovascular with American College of Cardiology. So within 4.5 years, we grew about 12x in revenues. Like we started with 2018, and today we have 3 major health system contracts. We stay about like 10 minutes per patient visit per provider. And we increased the revenues for our customers by 15% from the moment we deployed our solutions from 3 buckets. 1, additional ancillary services triggering, acting like an RCM by pushing like rejections and denials actually away from it because we justify it, and basically creating assessment reimbursements during the intake, including primary care. We also reported 97% accuracy in our opioid risk model with a clinic that I'm personally involved with. We accomplished a lot, raised about 2.5 million to date. 1.2 million came from non-dilutive equity. We're raising 3 million. Along with it, we have like 3 grants that one of them came from $1 million from NIH for mental health. And we actually have 2, and third one came through last year, Ascension, Banner on Main Health, with our contracts, along with the 2 acquisitions we have done. Our team is formed of, lucky enough we have 2 doctors who are actually business savvy people join into our team. We have Robin and Lisa coming from compliance and behavioral health background, and my team. Thanks for giving us the chance, and happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mehmet. I have a couple of questions to start with, and then we definitely have some in our chat as well. So I know you told us specifically about CLIEXA Pulse tonight, which was created with the American College of Cardiology. But I think your platform can also be used to monitor other chronic conditions. Can you talk a little bit more about those?
Absolutely. So I think the idea, thanks for the question, Katie. The idea here is really focus on really common denominators. Cardiovascular was one of them. So we started with that. We also have like pain management platform, but it manages not only pain. As an example, I gave an example about cardiovascular condition with hypertension and diabetes. But we also have integrated pain that can monitor mental health with pain. So you can pair chronic conditions and the system will really follow up and give the snapshot for the provider. If you think about primary care today rarely are managing chronic conditions, chronic care management, because they don't have the right tools to do it. So we enable those, not only adding those condition-specific assessments, devices, but also creating snapshots from different data resources to enable them to see and manage those two conditions. In fact, majority of the subspecialties like nephrology already managing cardiovascular, like blood pressure for patients, but they don't charge for RPM or CCM because they don't have the tool for it. That's where we come in.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's really exciting. And I know, you know, in our short presentation tonight, we also only got to see a fraction, I think, of the many features really that your platform does. So what else, aside from the things that we saw? I mean, the management of chronic conditions, you know, clearly from the clinician perspective and really helping those patients that are at higher risk bubble to the top and make sure that we're following up closely with those patients, super important. But I know there are other things that you all do that really can help the practice in general, correct?
Absolutely. And again, this was a good kind of playground for me that I personally own. And I'm a shareholder on an integrated pain clinic that gave us a good playground to learn other things that we can build within CLIEXA. So to your point, if you think about patient journey, Katie, patients show up in a clinic, fill forms, digital, paper, it doesn't matter. Paper to digital is 20 years old technology today. But really what matters, as a doctor, you need to give them the opportunity to practice medicine instead of typing documents in EMR and try. I want to give that snapshot within a second. So we enable a really fully customized intake solution that will really not only qualify patients for ancillary services, but it will trigger documentation according to the payer guidelines, clinical assessment outcomes, risk models, and all that directly to the EMR. Within seconds, you have all these buckets fully integrated. But now we're talking to the EMR. If there's a claim that you're going to be right, you're going to select as a CPT code, you want to make sure that somebody else didn't code for it. So our claim data integration will actually notify for only available services, not clinically, but by the payer somebody did not bill for. So we're cutting that denial and rejection issue by acting like a revenue cycle management platform. We have also like reporting that goes into MIPS reporting, into the quality reporting, into EMR discretely. We also have remote patient monitoring that tracks patients pre-post surgery, like complications and so on and so forth. But now multiply that with 8 different subspecialties and conditions. We're really creating this foundational thing to communicate all the information that is necessary that doctor wants to see. I'll say this and stop here. Remote monitoring information is really tools out there really providing how we can get the 16 data points per month so the clinics actually monitor and get $59.99 a month. Well, patient monitoring should be personalized because it's just not data. Doctors don't want just data. They want an actionable insight to that data. So that's where we come in to monitor that.
Well, and it seems like this would be a great tool as we move more toward value-based care. I mean, you guys are taking it from patient intake to revenue cycle and billing, which is super helpful. Okay, so several questions from our audience. You know, the first one from Dr. Macaluso. So there are a lot of problems related to remote monitoring, telehealth, and the similar, and it relates to the failure to really get those integrated into your practice and your workflows. And this is further delayed by reimbursement issues, HIPAA issues, practice and provider resistance. I'm sure you've seen all of those things, right? So tell me how, you all are helping practices overcome some of those obstacles.
Absolutely. So that's a great question. So if you think about the healthcare system today, we do pretty much everything to challenge doctors not to practice medicine. Document it, make sure you justify it. And in the meantime, we want you to see enough patients also make money if you can out of it. So the problem starts with the system. Well, we all know the problems. Well, HIPAA interoperability, we solved that problem. Interoperability actually has been monopolized with EMR companies for years by saying HIPAA is there. And nobody knows today in the market. When I say nobody, I'm being actually a little bit rhetorical here, but the Cures Act tells us patient owns the data, and I want that data to be shared by everybody. Of course, there's going to be security. But the thing is, I want doctor to see what they want to see, and then that's already within the EMR. We're not providing another platform, another app. We're enabling, look, create the patient journey. You're already collecting this data from the patients when they come for a telehealth visit or anything, and the challenges are still there. But we're just basically creating a convenience factor for the patients. Well, I don't want to type this up and answer the same questions with the medical assistant and the PA and the doctor multiple times. They want to see a picture. Let us paint that picture by reverse engineering your policies and guidelines, by asking the right question to enable clinically that services you're going to provide is eligible, and administratively somebody didn't charge for it, and also document everything that's necessary. So reverse engineering the payer model, again, coming from Aetna, it is not that hard. But again, interoperability, security around it, we have done it. We have customers. And when I say 15% revenue actually increase, it's a lot of money if you think about it.
But sure.
Move that away, enabling that for a doctor to save 10 minutes per patient visit per day. I mean, all of the doctors on this call can calculate what the return for that, but remove this as a side. What makes me the better one across the street? Like, what is the difference that I provide? Well, I can show value, to your point, value-based care.
Sure.
So that's kind of
and I think it sounds like you are really doing a great job, really trying to work within the workflows. You have a lot of providers that are helping with on your board and part of your leadership team to really make sure these are integrated into current workflows, which I think is super important. So a few more questions from our audience. A couple of questions about EMRs. So first of all, what EMRs are you integrating with at this point? And then another question about the data specifically, right? You touched a little bit on who owns the data, but one of our audience members said, aren't you giving away the data by pushing it back into the EHR?
Yes, great question. So the EMRs, we are official marketplace partners with Epic, Athena Health, Cerner, and Greenway. That's those basically. We're becoming their, well, we became already, but we're available immediately, including Microsoft Azure. We're also available in the Transact application marketplace. So those are like just an app, just in iOS or Android phones that you're using. So we already did the handshake. Adding multiple clinics is basically through their channels, but we drop some of these revenues to those EMRs, which is a great return. We don't have to solve the same problem again and again. For the other ones, like for example, Clinical Works or All Scripts, we have one-off implementations with them. Again, it's the same model, but they don't have, we don't have that marketplace partnerships built in yet. We do case by case to answer your question. But when I say integration, it's not one way. We talk constantly to the EMR. If there's data comes in with the report, it requires a trigger to the patient, it goes the other way. Or the patient has a blood pressure that, along with a complication that triggers a notification in a Clinical Works, Jelly Beans, we triggered that. All these APIs are already built in. The second part of the question, I think you were asking about, the data. So we actually sign a business associate agreement, which is standard with any digital health technology today. We're saying you own the data, but give us the opportunity to process the data. Basically, I'm not saying this is data of Katie Richardson, age 25, having this chronic condition, and so on and so forth. We're looking at a female who has a chronic condition of hypertension with type 2 diabetes and the cardiovascular risk high according to American College of Cardiology. If you put certain treatment, we monitor this data and constantly process and give it back to that clinic specifically. We're saying, Katie, with your treatment models, this will be the outcome from your patient base. We're actually personalizing your medicine to you constantly real time. So that data is owned by the clinic. We don't own it. We can process it to give that information back to that point.
Well, Mehmet, I have been, I think, blown away. The idea, again, the amount of data that comes in is overwhelming, I think, for providers to really be able to take that from multiple sources and put it in a way that helps us take better care of patients, I think is super exciting. I know that there are several additional questions here. And again, I hope everyone stay with us for our networking session, because many of the questions are going to be much more detailed, and both Mehmet, Wendy, and Brent can answer all of those questions during networking. So thank you again for being here. So I'm going to give a few announcements here, and then we'll get over to networking, because I know we're coming to the close of our hour. Again, for those of you, if you haven't been here, essentially when we end the session, you'll be in the networking lounge. You can simply, the logos of not only the 3 companies that presented live tonight, but also Articulate Labs, ICMed, and Illuria Health, so our 3 Pitch Club extension videos, they will all have networking tables, and all you need to do is click on a chair around that table and you will enter into essentially a virtual networking room. So please stick with us. We would love to have you. Again, for those of you, Jennifer just put it in the chat again. For those of you in our audience, please, please, please fill out our poll everywhere. Our CEOs, our founders, our companies really want this feedback from you all. So please, you don't have to be a healthcare provider to fill it out. We want everyone on the call to give feedback. We will send a follow-up email as usual to everyone who registered and attended the event with not only contact information, but links to the pitch videos. And also we have a Pitch Club LinkedIn group where we hope to continue the conversation. And so you definitely please watch for that so you can join and continue the conversation that way as well. Our next Pitch Club is Tuesday, February 1st, and it is going to be focused on innovations in dentistry and oral health. We hope you'll join us. We'll send that link out in your follow-up email as well. And if you want to get the Pitch Club calendar for the next several months, or if you're a startup founder or know a great startup that you would like to see pitch on an upcoming Pitch Club, you can go to AngelMD.com, and both the calendar and access to the Pitch Club application are there. There's also a blog post, recent blog post that we had really talking about upcoming Pitch Clubs, and that's on the website as well. One last event I want to tell you very quickly about. Have you heard of Side Hustle MD? So if you receive our daily briefing called Vital Signs, you know we are sponsored of an upcoming event, Side Hustle MD's Summit. It's going to be a great event featuring clinicians who do all kinds of interesting things outside of their clinical work, from advising startups to real estate investing to building medical spas and all kinds of other stuff. So if you have interest in learning more about the host of options out there, I would encourage you to apply for early registration. You can also do that on the AngelMD website. We will also send the link out in our follow-up communication. So thank you all for being here this evening. We really appreciated it. Please do join us for our networking, which will come up next, because I know our CEOs and founders are eager to continue the conversation and continue to answering your questions. Thank you so much.